Hello, everybody.
Oh, hello.
It has been a long time. I know I said I was going to start making videos again, and then I didn't. And all of a sudden, I'm back with a video about my thoughts on a meta I haven't actually been playing in. I'm going to just say it outright. I have not really been playing much Pokemon, but through my podcast with Jake, Metapod, Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta, link in the description. I have been keeping, up to date with the meta, if you will. So I think it was, and I've been playing a lot of different games. So I do think I do have some interesting now experience in other card games that will help explain why I think that the current meta is not necessarily in a healthy place, despite what a lot of people might say, and what it needs to get there and what might be coming that will get us there. So I wanted to address the standard has a problem. So if you look at a lot of the meta right now, on Limitless especially, great platform for that, what you'll see is there is a variety of decks, right? But all of those decks broadly share one thing in common, which is that they have the nearly identical win condition. And I think that's the first point that's important when you talk about a healthy metagame and a healthy game in general, a healthy TCG, is what are the viable win conditions that exist for said TCG? Currently, in Pokemon, the viable win condition is take all 6 prizes. Now, that is the default win condition. That is the win condition the whole game is built around. Every card game has default win conditions. You think about it, Mew VMax is really, really good because it does that, taking lots of prizes very quickly, very well. But the rest of the decks basically have the same approach. And all you really get into is a battle in terms of deck building of how do you take all your prizes faster given what the meta might be? And that basically just means in Pokemon, hit for weakness. That's the one path that I think most of the decks have gone. So it's just kind of an arms race of taking prizes faster, better, stronger, all of that nonsense. And then in the same win condition, but a slightly different approach, you have things like Jolteon VMax, which is really there to be I'm still here to take prizes, don't get it twisted, but I'm taking prizes by spreading it around, right? We'll spread it around, we'll take a couple of turns, and then we're gonna win all in one turn, or a turn and a half, 2 turns basically. They're still the same win condition though. And the variety, the flavor, if you will, is just how fast you wanna get there, and that's basically it. I think it's important to look at other card games, right? What do they do? How does that exist outside of Pokemon? So first off, if we look at Magic the Gathering as one example, Magic the Gathering has, over its history, a large range of win conditions. Obviously, you have winning by reducing your opponent's life total, which is normally at 20 in normal matches, but in Commander, it's 40, but I won't get too much into Commander. But it's you reduce the life total to 0, you beat your opponent. Done. Easy. That's taking prizes. That's the default. But there are a lot of cards and strategies that exist throughout Magic's history. Now, I don't know. I don't play Standard or Modern but there are pretty viable strategies, especially in Commander, of I'm going to win by milling you. I'm going to win by actively getting rid of the cards in your deck turn after turn. And those win conditions, as unfun as they might seem to people, those win conditions are important. There's also other ones like Control. And we have had Control and Mill in Pokemon, I'll grant you that. But Control being something like Stacks. So Stacks in Magic is basically these are cards that say you can't play the game. But Magic also has other wild win conditions. In Commander, there's a thing called Thassa's Oracle. And basically, if you I don't know what it is, but the whole strategy is you mill yourself, you self-mill, and then if you play the Thassa's Oracle when you have no cards in deck or something, I don't know, but you just auto win. The card itself tells you win if X. And we have had that in Pokemon with Unknown Hand, but we very infrequently have that in Pokemon for good reasons. The way that the game is designed doesn't really support that fully, and that's fine. But my point is that Pokemon doesn't have any other win conditions. Digimon, you have taking security, but you also have security control. So there is a control archetype that has almost always been viable in Digimon. I'm sure there's lots of things with Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's also important to point out that all of these other games have interactivity with your opponent more so than Pokemon does. And I think that is the important aspect, is when you have various win conditions in a TCG, you are basically telling your opponents, hey, instead of just taking prizes, if you're not going to focus on the fact that I'm going to control you or I'm going to mill you or whatever it might be, if you don't have anything in your deck to deal with that, I will win most of the time. And it forces players building those decks to start building suboptimally. And I think suboptimal deck building, and I mean suboptimal meaning like you're not just trying to increase the power level for the default setting of this deck's win condition to the nth degree. Suboptimal deck building are things that we had to do in the past when control was a thing. So this brings me to my third point, which is we have had control and mill in Pokemon in the past. So it's not like Pokemon has never had this. You have cards like Pidgey Control from when I was starting off. Grant Manley famously piloted it very well at several regionals. And the idea of that deck, as annoying as it might have been to face, was basically, hey, I'm going to get rid of all of your energy throughout the game and prevent you from attacking. And then over time, you will simply deck yourself out. So it's basically slow mill, if you want. It's not actively typically milling you. It's just preventing you from taking all 6 prizes until you run out of cards. That's just control. That's control. And then you had decks like Durant Mill, which I know might be making a comeback, but also there was the Mill at the beginning of Sword and Shield, which had Lieutenant Surge and Balelba and Bryson Man, and the Mewtwo and Mew using, I can never remember, Mad Cargo GX to discard 5. So you could discard, I think it was like 16 cards in a turn, or 13 or 11, some crazy amount of cards. And in Pokemon, where you discard lots of cards and draw a lot of cards, that's a lot. That's a lot. So that was like an active mill. Like, I'm going to mill you before you take all your 6 prizes. But those are alternate win conditions. And what those did, they forced decks to build with that in mind. Like Gardevoir and Sylveon as well, being like a wall stall. Wall stall is another win condition of like, sometimes you don't care if you attack. You just make it so your opponent can't get their prizes. And it's, again, a slow mill approach. You had to put things in wall stalls like Fabas. You had to put in Giraffarigs, right? Take a turn off to Lost Zone, key cards from your opponent's discard. That's important, right? Like, and you have to know how to play those things. You have to build suboptimally. And I think that is why, broadly speaking, Pokemon needs alternate win conditions, which it really doesn't have right now. But I will say there is hope on the horizon. So in Brilliant Stars, we are getting a few cards that are going to really, I think, increase the viability of alternate win conditions for the standard format. And those cards are, in particular, there is Roseanne's Backup. I'm going to go quickly pull that up on the screen so I can read it. But Roseanne's Backup allows you to do 4 things effectively if you want, up to 4. As a supporter, you can shuffle a Pokemon from your discard pile into your deck, a tool card, a stadium card, and an energy, which includes special energy, which, depending on your strategy is really important. Now, you might think to yourself, oh, if it's a mill deck, then I could put that in as a counter to mill or control or whatever. And I'm like, yes, you can. That's the point. If a control deck plays this to get their tools back to make it so that you lose the game via control or mill, you can also tech this in as a tech against it. But then you will have games where that is in your hand instead of the other supporters that are just obviously better for your deck normally. But that is an important aspect to keeping a meta healthy, is creating some additional variance by suboptimal deck design. Another interesting one is Team Yell's Cheer, shuffling in Pokemon and supporter cards. Palpad may stick around long term, but this is another Palpad option effectively, up to 3. And you have a couple of other cards that are really important, which is if you want to talk about wall stall, Sharon's Care is a really good wall stall card. There used to be a card called Acerola, which lets you pick up, I don't know if it was basic or evolution, can't remember, but pick up a Pokemon and basically all the damage goes away. Sharon's Care does that for any colorless Pokemon that has damage counters. You can put it into your hand. Now, it only applies to colorless, and colorless Pokemon are not always the beefiest, but if you can make your Pokemon big enough to not die, and if they were to reprint something that stops weakness on colorless Pokemon, all of a sudden you have a fantastic wall stall strategy that your opponent needs to then figure out, okay, like how do you counter that? In a deck that you're supposed to take prizes, if you can never take prizes, like, do you have to do things that like control their hand a little bit? You have to play more Marnies or whatever it might be. Another great card is gonna be the Floatzel. The Floatzel has an attack that allows you to put 2 item cards from your discard pile into your hand. Comboing that with things like Crushing Hammers and things like the Roseanne's Backup to get other things from your discard into your deck, so you don't deck yourself out. All of that is, I think, really, really important. Again, you could grab yourself a Crushing Hammer and a Pal Pad, and just every turn, just do the same thing, and you just loop it, and that's control. And then, Pokemon would need to print something that can stop that, like a Giraffe Rig again, that can Lost Zone things. And then finally, we're getting things like Bibarel, which lets you draw a bunch of cards, which typically these decks need, and Manaphy, which will protect the bench, which you usually need, especially against decks like Jolteon that are just going to blow through all of your like little dudes in the back that are like, your setup Pokemon. All of those things are coming with Brilliant Stars, and that's genuinely why I'm excited for Brilliant Stars to hopefully shake up the meta. V-Stars are, I think, a good step forward in reducing the prize cards taken for, knocking things out. But additionally, creating support for alternate win conditions is wildly, wildly important. So that's just sort of my, discussion, if you will, of like win conditions in Pokemon versus other games, why it's important. Let me know what you think in the comments. I will say, I know that it's not fun to play against alternate win condition decks because you've sat down at the table with an expectation, the social contract, if you will, that like, hey, I'm going to take prizes, you're going to try to take prizes, and we're going to have fun doing it. And then somebody basically comes in and says, no, you won't take any you won't win the game. How about that? You can't play. And yeah, that can feel crappy. But I think it's wildly important to a healthy meta, because then when you find ways to counter them and you play correctly to counter them, it does give you a very big feeling of like accomplishment. To be honest, when you could beat a Pidgey control deck with a deck that's not normally supposed to beat it, it's a sense of accomplishment. So fingers crossed that Sander or Grant or some other amazing players out there come back with some great alternate win condition strategies starting late February into March, when the regional season hopefully starts up again. Again, let me know what you think in the comments. Hopefully you're enjoying me being back. I will try to make more videos. I'm excited for Brilliant Stars. So yeah, take care everybody, and I'll see you in a future video. Carpe awesome.